Okay, imagine you're learning something really complex, like, I don't know, advanced jazz improv or maybe theoretical physics. You grab the manual, right? Scales, equations, the basics.
Sure, you start
But
that.
then you hit a point. Do you, like, meticulously follow step one, step two, step three? Or do you eventually just have to trust your gut, rely on hunches, instinct?
That tension, that's exactly it. The roadmap versus the messy breakthrough. It's not just you struggling with jazz scales. It's a big debate in academia about how knowledge actually gets made.
And that's what we're diving into today, specifically for interdisciplinary research, which is already pretty complex territory.
Exactly. We're looking at a really interesting exchange between Linn Mackey and Rick Szostak. Szostak proposed this very structured, multi-step method for doing interdisciplinary work.
Like a recipe, almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And Mackey comes back, very respectfully, mind you, but it says, hold on. The real process, it's much more fluid, more intuitive. It resists being pinned down by a fixed set of rules.
Got it. So this isn't just about personal style, like, I prefer outlines, you prefer brainstorming.
No, it's deeper. It's about how new ideas are even born. So our mission today is to unpack Mackey's argument. He uses his own research as a case study, compares it to Szostak's steps, and then connects it all to, the bigger picture philosophy of science.
Yeah, so what's the quick version, the initial takeaway?
Well, Mackey gives Szostak credit. He says the steps are useful, definitely valuable for structuring the conversation around the research, for iterating, but their main value, it comes after the fact.
As a check.
Precisely.
Yeah.
A post hoc check.
Yeah.
You use them to critique and structure your findings after the core insight. That intuitive leap has already happened, not as the map to get you there in the first place.
Right, because if you stick too closely to the rules from the start.
Mackey's point is you might miss the really novel stuff. You'll get solid, competent work, maybe, but maybe not the breakthrough thinking.
Okay, let's get into the specifics. Mackey puts Szostak's steps to the test, using his own experience writing a specific article, right? Fractals or fish from 95.
Yes, and he starts off fair. Step one in Szostak's model is start with an interdisciplinary question.
And did Mackey do that?
He did, absolutely. He'd read something by Stanley Fish arguing against the very possibility of interdisciplinarity, found it deeply troubling, and felt this urge to rebut it. So boom, interdisciplinary question established. Check.
But then the process diverges from the manual.
Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Once the question was there, it wasn't about methodically going to step two. It was driven by, chance and what he was currently obsessed with. He happened to be deep into chaos theory and fractals at the time.
Okay.
And he says the phrase fractal or fish just popped into his head.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
He liked the sound of it, the alliteration, it kind of echoed. And that catchy phrase, that mantra, became the driving force. It wasn't a step, it was a hunch, a hook that pulled the research along.
So right away, the rule-based model starts to look a bit shaky. Mackey actually points out which steps he didn't really use, doesn't he?
He does. He says he didn't systematically use step two, which is identify the key phenomena. Or step three, ascertain what methods are particularly relevant.
Why not?
Because the title, Fractals or Fish, had already done that implicitly. Fractals was the method, the lens. The catchy title basically short-circuited those steps.
And he skipped others, too.
Oh, yeah. The literature survey, step four. He admits doing only, and I quote, a cursory literature survey at best, mostly just to see what Fish's latest arguments were. He acknowledges a deeper dive might have been good.
Right.
But the core idea, the fractals or fish thing, was already too compelling. He didn't wait.
Huh. So if you were rigidly following Szostak, you'd still be back at step two, maybe making lists. What about step six? That's about researching underused theories, right?
Right. And this is interesting. Mackey did end up using chaos theory and fractals in a way he wasn't aware others were doing in that specific context. So technically, he fulfilled step six.
Ah, so the system works.
Well, not really. He emphasizes he didn't do it because he systematically looked for underused theories. He did it because, again, the reoccurring mantra of fractals or fish goaded me on. It was accidental compliance. The rule described what happened. It didn't cause it to happen.
That's the complete opposite of a methodical approach. So, okay, skipping steps, driven by a catchy phrase. How did the actual insight, the core argument of his paper, emerge?
That came later, he says, and again as a hunch. He was reading Fish's critique of a legal theorist, Roberto Unger, and suddenly he realized Fish's whole argument was kind of trapped within an unspoken assumption about geometry.
Geometry, like shapes.
Metaphorically, yes.
Yeah.
Mackey realized Fish was arguing implicitly from a Euclidean perspective.
Okay, unpack that. Euclidean, like high school geometry. Straight lines, perfect circles.
Exactly. Think rigid, predictable, smooth. The idea that you can neatly segment things, measure them precisely. If you hold that view, complexity looks like an error, something to be smoothed out. The world should be fundamentally orderly.
And Unger, the guy Fish was critiquing.
Mackey saw Unger's language, his thinking, as implicitly fractal.
Okay, so fractal geometry. That's like coastlines, snowflakes, infinitely complex, jagged patterns within patterns.
Precisely. It embraces messiness, dynamism. It says complexity is the norm, not the exception. You can't measure that coastline perfectly with a simple ruler because the closer you look, the more detail emerges.
Wow. So the big aha wasn't finding some obscure fact in the literature. It was spotting this hidden fundamental assumption in Fish's thinking. Fish was dismissing Unger's complex fractal ideas because they didn't fit inside his own neat Euclidean box.
That's the core of it. And that connection, applying fractal patterns to analyze philosophical assumptions, is the kind of intuitive leap you just can't schedule or put into a step-by-step guide.
And only after having this insight did he look back at Szostak's steps.
Yeah, he said step 9's bits about, like, adjusting theories or specifying their range then became useful, but only in a post-hoc way. They helped structure the argument for the paper, but they didn't generate the idea itself.
It's tempting to just say, okay, that's just Mackey's personal style. But he's making a much bigger claim here, isn't he? About how knowledge itself is created.
Absolutely. He's tapping into a major shift in the philosophy of science.
Mm.
Why did we ever think research had to be purely rule-based anyway?
Good question. Where did that idea come from?
You have to go back before the mid-20th century. The dominant view was logical positivism. Science was seen as this purely objective, systematic thing. You go follow the scientific method, hypothesis, experiment, data, conclusion. Very linear, very rule-bound.
The textbook version.
The textbook version. But then came post-positivism, this wave of thinking that said, hang on, science is actually way messier, more human, more intuitive than that. And Mackey brings up some key figures.
Who are they?
First, Michael Polanyi. He talked about the tacit dimension. This is all the stuff experts know but can't fully articulate. Like, how does a master craftsman know just how to shape the wood? It's not just rules. It's ingrained preconscious knowledge.
Like Mackey's fractals or Fish is popping into his head. That sounds like tacit knowledge bubbling up.
Exactly. Then you've got Karl Popper and P.B. Medawar. Popper talked about the hypothetico-deductive method, where the hypotheses themselves, the very starting point, often come from hunches, intuition, and even dreams. Medawar, a Nobel Prize winner, flat out called forming a hypothesis an imaginative or inspirational act.
So creativity isn't just for the arts, it's core to science too.
Absolutely. And then the big one, Thomas Kuhn and his paradigms.
Right. Kuhn said science operates within these big frameworks or paradigms.
Yes. And during normal science, you work within the paradigm's rules. But during revolutionary science, when a new paradigm challenges the old one, think Copernicus versus Ptolemy or Einstein versus Newton, the two paradigms are incommensurable.
Meaning you can't judge the new one using the old one's rules?
Correct. There's no logical step-by-step path from one to the other. Making the shift requires a leap, an intuitive grasp, not just following instructions.
Okay, I see where this is going. If that's true for established sciences like physics, which have strong paradigms,
Then Mackey's point hits hard. Interdisciplinary work is often happening precisely in the gaps between those established paradigms. It's often in what Kuhn would call a pre-paradigm stage. You're exploring uncharted territory.
so if even regular science relies heavily on intuition for breakthroughs,
Then interdisciplinarity, working in those less mapped zones, must be even more reliant on intuition. Trying to nail it down with a strict set of steps just fundamentally misunderstands the nature of the exploration.
it's like needing a compass and intuition more than a detailed street map, because the streets haven't been built yet.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
So if rules aren't the primary driver, what should we focus on? Mackey mentions a shift in language, moving from integration towards emergence. What's the significance there?
Well, integration kind of implies neatly fitting pieces together, right? Combining discipline A and discipline B, maybe finding the logical overlap. It suggests something procedural, almost additive.
Like the result is just A plus B.
Sort of. But emergence, that's about something genuinely new appearing. Something unexpected that wasn't predictable just by looking at the individual parts. The whole is greater than and different from the sum of its parts.
And you can't really write a rule for predicting the unpredictable.
Exactly. Emergence, by its nature, resists step-by-step capture. So if interdisciplinarity aims for emergence, a rigid methodology might actually stifle it.
Okay, but Mackey isn't advocating for total chaos, is he? Does he offer any way forward? How do we manage this intuitive
I
process?
know, he's constructive. He doesn't say throw out all structure. His main suggestion is about transparency. We need to be more honest about the actual process of discovery.
Meaning?
Meaning, researchers, especially interdisciplinarians, should reflect on how their ideas really came about, the hunches, the dead ends, the weird connections, the fractals or fish moments, and share that story. Not just the cleaned-up version that makes it look like they followed a neat, logical path.
Like Medawar's point about scientific papers often being fraudulent in how they present the process.
Precisely. Mackey suggests maybe appending these honest accounts to articles or collecting them. Imagine a collection of stories about how real interdisciplinary breakthroughs happened.
That wouldn't be a rule book.
No, it wouldn't be the rule book, but it could provide really useful models, maybe some generalizations, maybe even additions or nuances to Szostak's steps. But it would always come with that built-in reminder. This list isn't exhaustive, and the core engine is often intuition.
So wrapping this up, the big picture seems to be embrace the messiness, acknowledge that while systematic checks are valuable, especially later on,
The real sparks often fly from those unspecifiable intuitive leaps, that weird connection, that nagging phrase, that gut feeling that pushes you forward, even when the map doesn't quite make sense yet.
it really makes you think, doesn't it? If so much of the actual creative process in scholarship gets hidden, smoothed over to fit this idealized narrative of methodical steps, what are we losing?
That's the provocative question, isn't it? We might be losing the very models of how to be creative. If aspiring researchers only see the polished final product and not the messy, intuitive journey, how can they learn to navigate their own uncharted territories? Maybe sharing the leaps is just as important as sharing the landing.